maybe. Hey, look at there. We got Miss Orozco. That's all right. My pen doesn't seem to be working. Let me try something else real quick. Let me try this. Try plugging it out. There it is. Got a problem with my USB port. Today is the 15th. You guys will probably not remember specifically, but at one point, probably in like fourth grade, you learned how to reduce fractions, right? I'm guessing it was around fourth grade. And that's just one of those things that you learned and you do every day. This kind of becomes that thing. All right. So it looks a little different, obviously, but this just is something now that we carry with us because we start now seeing from this point on a lot of square roots. And there's two things, well, I guess three things you can do with square roots. One of them is you can just figure out what they are. Like, for example, if I put up here the square root of 16, you could just tell me straight up that the answer is 4, right? Another thing you can do is you can approximate square roots. So if I gave you like the square root of 10, you and I both know, and we'll talk more about these numbers very shortly, but you and I both know that you cannot find the perfect square root of 10 because the square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 16 is 4. But anything in between those is going to be what we call irrational. And so rather than try to figure out exactly what it is, sometimes, rarely, we approximate square roots. So if we know that this is bigger than the square root of 9 and smaller than the square root of 16, then logically the answer has to be 3 point something. Right. And again, you know the square root of 9 and you know the square root of 16. I mean, I assume you know what those are. And the square root of 10 is much closer to the square root of 9, right? So if someone said, hey, I'm forcing you right now to tell me, give me a decimal that this is close to, you wouldn't say something stupid like 3.5 because it's not in that center range. It's closer to the 9. So what might you say for an approximation? 3.1. 3.2 even. I mean, but we certainly want to stay on that low end of 3 point small, right? This is not what we're doing today. I don't want any decimals. I don't want any approximations. The day will come when we're interested in that, but today we're not. So what we're going to do, the third thing you can do with roots is what's called simplifying them. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what this looks like, and then we're going to make a really important list of numbers in our notes. So here's what it looks like. You and I know, I think, that the square root of 50 is not nice, right? Like there is no perfect square root of 50. There's a square root of 49 and there's a square root of 64, but there's no square root of 50. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start breaking down square roots like this. So the first thing I want you to do is draw a little tree diagram. And at the end of each branch, this is really important, just draw 2 blank square root signs. It's really important. I still fight with 11th and 12th graders about this, that when we break down our numbers, we're not just breaking into something times something, we're breaking into the root of something times the root of something. Now, can you think of a pair of numbers that multiply to make 50? What else? Same thing, 25 and 2, 2 and 25. Right. Now, let me ask you a question. Don't write this down. If I chose 10 and 5, I would get a gold star on one hand for saying, good job, way to go. 10 times 5 makes 50. But what's the square root of 10? It doesn't exist. I mean, it does, but it's not what we want. And what's the square root of 5? Again, it's no bueno, right? And so when I think about breaking down, it's not arbitrary. You don't get just to pick like you did in fourth grade. In fourth grade, your teacher didn't care. When you made a little cute factor tree, I'm sure you've all made those before, your teacher said you can use anything you want, because then eventually you just keep breaking things down until you get down to the core components. We're not interested in that kind of free-for-all stuff here. We're going to be really picky and hard on ourselves about what numbers we pick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to put in a good number and a leftover number. Again, not arbitrary. This is not just up to what you feel like at the time. What is the square root of 25? It is. So the answer to this math problem is 5 root 2. We're not accomplishing much here today. We're not like solving problems and equations and stuff. We're just learning how to do something that is from this point on expected of us. And that is just like you reduce fractions, you reduce square roots. It's a math thing. Like no self-respecting mathematician ever leaves the square root of 50 on a paper. They'll break it down to 5 root 2. And that's how we say these. So just get used to saying it. It's just a 3-word answer, 5 root 2. Okay, it's not wrong if you say 5 times the square root of 2. It's just a little bit more, annoying. So 5 root 2. So the question becomes, what numbers are important to put here? This first square root is really what's going to make you good at this, is can you always find the right number to put inside of that first square root? For that, we're going to make a red list. I'm going to use red. You're probably going to use a pencil. If you have a colored pen, if you want to borrow one of my red pens, you're welcome to. But this is the list that we're going to now start referring back to all the time. And I'll always call it the red list because I always draw it in red. It just sticks. So here comes the red list. And these are numbers that have a spectacularly awesome characteristic. And it means they can be square rooted. So the first number that can be square rooted is 1. Honestly, he's pretty unimportant because you're never going to take a square root and break it down into something times 1. Like, what's the point, right? Just walking in circles all day. So 1, while he is a red number, is not an important. Who's the next number that is square rootable? Good job. So make this list, and if it's not neat when you're done, go back, go home tonight or today, and rewrite it so that you have a beautiful work of art that you can continue to refer back to. And these are all on a piece of paper too. Did you guys all get ever this sheet? Remind me here in about whenever we're done that I'm going to hand you guys each out one of these, and this will help you along your journey as we get into roots, okay? Don't let me forget these. What's after 4? 6 is not rootable. 8 is not rootable. And again, what happens is as we're learning these, our brain thinks about dividing by 2. We love 8 because it's like, ooh, 4s, but 4 times 4 doesn't make 8. It's 9. 9 is the next one that can be made with something times itself. 1 times 1 made 1. 2 times 2 made 4. 3 times 3 makes 9. What's the next one? Correct, 16. What's after 16? 25. What's after 25? 36. What's after 36? 49. What's after 49? What's after 64? What's after 81? What's after 100? 121. These get a little bit harder. We're still in our 4th grade times tables comfort zone. Like someone got paid to teach you up through 12 times 12, right? Or to try to teach you that. And so the last one is obviously 12 times 12, which is 144. But we don't stop there, right? So my red list is going to start to like curve because I never leave myself enough room for this. I've been doing this for almost 3 decades. So expect that you might run out of space here. Does anyone know what's after 144? Nope. He is on the list, but he's not the next one. Nope, that's 11 times 12. We need something times itself. Obviously, in this case, I'm specifically talking about 13 times 13. 169. Very good. And Zane, after 169 is 196. After 196, we're definitely outside of our comfort zone now, right? 225. Very good. And I'm going to start working down now because, again, I guess to fit these all, I'd either need a really wide screen or I need to write smaller, neither of which is what I'm going to do. So after 225, 256. After 256, 289. And if you're wondering, does Tegan have these memorized? Of course she doesn't. I see what she's doing. She's doing exactly what you at this point ought to be doing. And understand that we can generate these by just multiplying the next number in line by himself. So we're currently up to 17 times 17. Next is 18 times himself, which is 324. And we're almost to the end of what we will worry about. There's two more. Next up is 19 and 19. And finally, this one we probably don't need a calculator for. 20 times 20 is 400. So this sweet, beautiful list of numbers is going to become our little resource that we refer back to again and again and again and again. So let's put these to use now. We're always going to want to pick numbers from the red list. So when I put numbers on the board, we're not just going to pick anything that works. So let's start with something that only has one possibility. This is all you're doing for today, by the way. This is your whole assignment. There's no next level, or this is just we're breaking down roots. That's it. We're going to get really good at this. I'm not going to let you not be really good at this. How do you break down an 8? Always remember to put your tree branches and then 2 blank square roots. That part takes about 3 seconds, and I absolutely demand that of you. Now, what 2 numbers are we thinking of? Right. And I want you to notice that if you watch me teach this lesson for the last 27 years and you watch me teach it for the next 10 years, you will never see me put 2 times 4. Even though that works, I will always, and I encourage you to always put the quote unquote good number in the first root so that it comes out in the same order that we want our answer to come out in. So I'm going to put 4 in the first one and 2 in the second one. And what is the square root of 4? So what would we say is then the simplified version of root 8? 2 root 2. Remember, just 3 quick words. 2 root 2. Done. Good. Okay, let's try the square root of 27. I'm trying to keep you with really easy ones, and then we're going to get into what we call the death numbers, and I'll be very specific about what they are. They're the ones that people always pick the wrong numbers, and I'm going to try to get you out of that. So 27 is easy. There's like only one obvious choice. What is it? Right. So branch, branch, root, root. And again, I want to very purposely put the 9 in the first one and the 3 in the second one. People that struggle with their times tables will struggle more with this, right? Obviously. So what is the square root of 9? So my answer is 3 root 3. Okay. Let's go again. So, I mean, you wouldn't want to pick 2 times 22, right? Even though 2 and 22, yay, they make 44. 2's trash, 22 is trash. Like, if they're not on the red list, they're trash. They're dead to me. They should be dead to you. What are we thinking of? Good. So we're going to go branch, branch, root, root. Remember, good guy goes in the first root. Trash guy goes in the second root. And 11 is trash. So what's my final answer? 2 root 11. Good job. She making fun of you? Eklund. Jeez. Can't say one wrong thing around here. Huh? So everybody okay so far? Okay. Let's get into the harder numbers. So these next ones, I call them the death numbers. If you want something a little less morbid or dark, you could just call them trouble spots or something like that. Call them whatever you want, but watch out. These are the ones that crush people. So here it goes. And it doesn't look like such a friendly little number, but you know, I've got, between Manlove and myself, we've got like 6 decades to prove that 32 is a killer. What's the first thing that someone got paid to teach you makes 32? 4 times 8. And 4 and 8 is not entirely trash. And that's the problem with these death numbers, is that there's always going to be one that is kind of like okay, but it's not good. 4 and 8 is what someone got paid to get stuck in your head, whether it was your mom and dad driving down the road shouting math facts at you, or your fourth grade teacher. Someone got paid. What's that? Right. Someone got paid to get 4 times 8 stuck in your head, and now I have to try to get it unstuck. Perfect. What you want to do is you want to not stop on the red list when you find something that works. You only want to stop on the red list when you are sure you found the best one that works. And Kyla said it, or if you just keep going, eventually you're like, 16, I see you. So we, even though we don't know 16 times 2 from our times tables, we're all like, big kids. And we know that 16 times 2 makes 32. So we're going to go branch, branch, root, root. And we're going to put the good guy 16 in the first root and 2 in the second root. What's our final answer? Good. I would like to show you this, and I intend to never show you this again, ever. If you decide that you want to make bad choices and you just are like, Mr. Ahern's nuts, this is what happens. It works. It's just more work. So 4 and 8 makes 32. No one's going to take that away from you. So if you do branch it into 4 and 8, what's the square root of 4? Mm-hmm. The trouble with 2 root 8 is it's like a teacher saying, hey, please reduce this fraction, and you reduce it a little bit, but then you stop. It's like if your teacher said, hey, reduce the fraction 12 over 36, and you're like, ooh, I know, I'll divide them both by 2. And you're like, yay for me. You don't get any stars for that because you didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't finish the problem. That's what this is like. So the trouble is, if you make bad choices like 4 and 8, now you, unlike the person sitting next to you, have more work to do. And you now have the distinct honor of now getting to make another tree off of the undead root. What does this 8 break into?
4 and 2.
Excuse me. 4 and 2. And what's the square root of 4? And so I always refer to these guys, I'm going to circle them in yellow for you. Those are called jailbreaks. I always say that because they're like the guys that got to break out of the jail that is the square root sign. And now you have to multiply your jailbreaks together. What's 2 times 2?
4.
And look what you still get. The moral of the story is, if you don't do anything wrong, you're going to get there eventually, but who in their right mind would choose the one on the right over the one on the left? Like nobody, right? So you can use any numbers, but there's always a best way. And that's the only way I'm going to teach you how to do this, is the quickest, most efficient way. So 32 is your first death number, and somehow make sure that that is highlighted in your notes to the point that, okay, when I see 32, I'm going to use 16 and 2. Right? The next death number is 48. And again, it's such an innocent number because you're never going to think of the one, well, eventually you will, but most normal people aren't going to think of the one I want you to think of. You're going to think of 4 times 12. And you might think of 8 times 6, but 8 and 6 are trash. So 4 and 12 is going to be the one that's like the distractor. Don't fall for 4 times 12. Can you find me a 48? $24 and 2 makes 48, but again, 24 is trash. It's not on the red list, and 2's trash. 16 and 3 is the one. And I don't expect you to have to reinvent the wheel every time. Like, I'm not going to expect you to go through this every time. You're going to memorize these. I'm just telling you that that's in your best interest. Is just memorize. You see 48, use 16 and 3. And I know that that's outside of what someone got paid to teach you, but we're here today together to say we're going to learn new stuff. And 48 needs to be busted up into 16 times 3. And you're starting to see a trend here. You're starting to see that 16 is pretty nefarious. Like, he's trouble, because we don't go up through 16 in grade school, but he's there. Square root of 16 is 4. So the square root of 48 breaks into 4 root 3. Okay. Next death number is 80. 80 is probably borderline the worst of them all, because all these facts come into mind. 8 and 10, trash times trash, so that's out. 4 times 20 is delicious, right? But we don't want that. You can always tell you found a bad choice if the root thing that's left over, the guy that's still stuck in jail, If he's breakable, then you know you've chosen poorly. So dig down the list. Where do we stop to find 80? Hint, hint, look at the previous two death numbers. Yeah. Hey, who knows that stuff? Well, you do now. You're going to memorize it. 5 times 16 is 80, and 16 is rad because he hides. But if we know where to look for him, then we get our answer for root 5. Okay. So there are a few more death numbers, and I really want these to have their own section in your notes because these are the ones that will kick our booties the most. Okay, next one is 96. Good. And I'm doing this to you because I didn't have this benefit when I was 30 years old, but now that I'm turning 50, I've got tons and tons of years of watching kids screw up these exact same numbers. So branch, branch, root, root, 16 times. And there it is, hidden from you, 4 root 6. Can you break down a root 6? No. Like you go, well, what about 2 and 3? Trash times trash. Not interested. If the only way to make a number is trash times trash, then it's not breakable. It's not prime. It's just not simplifiable, so to speak. 36. Yeah. So here's another death number right here. And Bryce, it's like he read my mind. The next one is 72. The first thing, I'm not trying to read your mind, but you know as well as I do that if you know your times tables and I put 72, you are going to think of 9 times 8, assuming someone got through to you your times tables. 9 times 8, because 9 is on the red list, right? But then you don't fall for it because 8 is like, ooh, I'm not done. And Bryce already spilled the beans on this one. Good job there, Brycey. So we're going to go branch, branch, root, root. And Bryce said it. I don't know if you heard him. 36 times 2. And what's the square root of 36? So we would say the square root of 72 is 6 root 2. 9 and 8 would work, but it would be like that one I did where you'd have to. So if we branch it into 9, 8, then we get 3 root 8, but then we have to break down the 8 into 4 and 2, and then we get a 2 and a root 2, and then we have to multiply our jailbreaks. It's just a big old pain in the buttowski, right? You still get to 6 times root 2. Just want to do it as quick as you can. Okay. Those are the most common death numbers. We can really, if you're seeing a trend here, it's not on accident. The death numbers consist of 36s and 16s because those guys are just way outside of our comfort zone. So you could do like 36 times 3 if you want another one to add to your notes, the square root of 108. And again, just memorize this. Like you're big kids, you can handle this. Branch, branch, root, root. Who'd have thunk? 36 times 3. Square root of 36? 6 root 3. Done. So if you encounter more death numbers, you know, you're the ones with the notes and the grade, right? It's your class. If you find more numbers that you feel like, oof, that one kicked my booty, add it into your notes on your own and maybe share it with your neighbor and tell them, hey, I just got this one. Pro tip. Because then someday when we're using this and quizzing on this, then you'll have a little box in your notes that's like, hey, watch out for these stupid numbers, right? Right. The just free for all, use any numbers you want way. Yeah. You mean with like where they made it take multiple steps? Yeah. Don't ever make it take multiple steps. If you can, I don't even know why. Can someone shut the door, please? I don't know what's going on next door, but that's ridiculous. If you ever find yourself needing to do more than one step, you're not trying hard enough. Like you should always do it in one step, literally always. Okay. It's I'm not going to give you any that you can't. I mean, you can always do it in one step. So let's try again. Let's do the square root of 125. So now I'm just going to throw numbers at you. I don't consider any more of these specifically death numbers. These are just, let's get in and see if we know what we're doing. So just before we even start, we're going to go branch, branch, root, root. always just train yourself to do that. Train it in today, and then it'll just be a habit. So you think of something that makes 125? Good job. That's quarter math. If I had $1.25 jangling in my pocket, you'd probably assume that I have 25-cent pieces, specifically 5 of them. 5 quarters makes $1.25. What's the square root of 25? So we get 5 root 5. Nice job. How about the square root of 132? Yeah, and the way you're going to learn this is with a calculator, because you might think that 16 goes into 132. It has a feel to it, like 16 ends in a 6 and my product ends in a 2, and I'm like, there's a chance. And the way you try it is you just type in 132 divided by 16, and what do you realize? It's a fail. But that's okay. That's how we get through this is we try and error until we find numbers that work. You should only be dividing by numbers on the red list, by the way. Right. Who's the first number on the red list? And don't say 1, because remember, one doesn't count. Let me cross that off. First number on the red list is 4. So I feel like 4's got a fighting chance, right? What does 4 go into 132? Is 33 trash or breakable? 3 and 11, trash times trash. Therefore, 33 is trash. 33, while it can be made into 3 and 11, 3 and 11 are both trash. So by definition, 33 is trash. You follow? For that reason, we have found our winner. And it wasn't very exciting. We just happen to know now that it's root, and we're going to put 4 in the first one, and we're going to put 33 in the second one, and then we're going to get our answer, 2 root 33. Okay, let's try again. Root 98. Nice job. And as you work your way through the red list, you try 4, 9, 16, you try a bunch of stuff, and eventually you're like, hot dog, baby. I just figured out that 49 doubled is 98. Sweet. And 49 is gorgeous. What's the square root of 49? Thank you. So we get 7 root 2. All right, let's go again. Square root of 180. There's one perfect answer and a couple of work but not good enough answers. There it is. And it just takes elbow grease. Like, you got to have a calculator handy. I accept that you'll use them a lot for this. And you're going to just experiment with the red list. And eventually you're like, hey, I just divided 180 by 36 and got 5. That's marvelous. So we're going to go branch, root. We're going to put the good guy in the first one, trash guy in the second one. It's our final answer. 6 root 5. Okay. About the square root of 175. Quarter math. If I had $1.75 in my pocket and I told you it was all coins, you would assume I have 7 quarters, right? I love quarter math. It got used yesterday in 7th hour. I won't tell you the name because I don't want to embarrass people, but kid busted out some quarter math and I was like, yeah, so awesome. So quarters help us. Anytime numbers end in double zeros, 50, 75, then you can use quarter math. If you can make it with quarters, it's probably going to help you. So we're going to go branch, root. 25 goes in the first one. And how many quarters does it take to make $1.75? 7. So we get 5 root 7. Okay. How about the square root of 540? So you just have to navigate through the red list. 4 will work, but you quickly, I hope, realize that that's probably not going to be good enough for our purposes. So while 4 is he kind of a half-hearted yay, we skip by him. We can do better. Did you divide 540 by 36? What did you get? Then it's good. Here's the trick to being good at this. So when you use your calculator, I know I already said this, but I talk a lot. So when you divide by 36 and you get 15, you really need to learn to investigate the second number. And is it trash? Yes. Because the only way to make it would be a trash and a trash. 5 times 3 is trash times trash, right? And so if you look at your leftover number, like had Alina's leftover number been like an 18, then I would have said, I'm not done because 18 is not trash. So if your second number isn't trash, then you didn't go far enough in the red list, right? What's the square root of 36? So our answer is 6 root 15. You guys think you got this? There's an assignment. I hope it posted itself on Delta Math. Fingers crossed. I had to do some tweaking and changing of the date, but it should be there and ready for you now. So that's where we'll be today on the old Delta. Good, good. It's assignment number 17, and I hope it's there.